Part 4, Chapter 22. Neshama and Ruach, the ultimate backbone of humans. Neshama and Ruach are the two components possessed by every single human being. Together, they confer humanity on humankind. Neshama and Ruach are the essential constituents that endow humans with their humanity. This chapter aims to show the reality and inseparability of the spirit duo. We will discuss the exact role of Ruach later. We're focusing on the creation of humans, specifically what makes humans human. The Bible presents the Neshama and the Ruach as imparted by God to humans. The following chapters about Ruach cast the base of spirituality, obviously Christ is the foundation, and psychology. The explanation will show you why each human possesses Ruach and how to use it advantageously, both spiritually and secularly. We'll start by seeing this association of Neshama and Ruach as an indivisible twosome. We saw this next verse in the last chapter, but it is the first time the duo is joined. Therefore, it is crucial to see it again. Unfortunately, the KJV translators omitted the translation for one of the Hebrew words. In biblical Hebrew, you can see both Ruach and Neshama appear, and they are both associated with humans. Genesis 7, verse 22 in the KJV. All, that is humans, all in whose nostrils was the breath, H 7307, of H 5397, was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. The New King James Version has, all in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life. All that was on the dry land died. Straight away, we see a significant issue that will confront us throughout our study of Ruach, its translation. In Genesis 6, verse 17, Ruach Chaim is translated breath of life. And in Genesis 2, verse 7, Nishmat Chaim is also translated identically in English, breath of life. You cannot translate two different Hebrew words with the same English word. In English, it is impossible to see this and correctly understand what the Word of God is telling us. Verify it yourself at unlockbiblemeaning.com. The KJV translators did not understand, as with most people today, the role of the Ruach. Similarly, they didn't understand that of the Neshamah either. And to top it off, who understands the relationship between Ruach and Neshamah? In Genesis 7, verse 22, the Ruach and Neshamah are side by side. They are different, and at the same time, both are interconnected and directly involved with human life. This association is so essential for comprehension that we will look at all 10 verses where we find this twosome. There are only 24 verses with Neshamah, H 5397, in the Old Testament, of which a whopping 10 include Ruach. I dare say that very few Bible readers know the relationship between Neshama and Ruach. Even fewer are likely to know there are numerous critical biblical references to this duo. We'll see them in Bible book order. 2 Samuel 22, verse 16. And the channels of the sea appeared, the foundations of the world were discovered, at the rebuking of the Lord, at the blast, that's H5397, Neshamah, at the blast of the breath, H7307, Ruach, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. As we go through these verses, first, see who possesses Neshama and Ruach, in this case, God. And second, see for what and how God uses Neshama and Ruach, in this case, literally to shake earth to protect his servant David. They emanate from God's nostrils, so it's fitting he blew the Neshama into the first human's nostrils. Genesis 2, verse 7. Job 4, verse 9. By the blast, H5397, Neshamah. By the blast of God they perish. And by the breath, H7307, Ruach. And by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. Eliphaz, Job's friend, reminds him how these godly attributes put down enemies. Both terms can have both a positive and negative effect, depending upon the context. This is the first step to master biblical Hebrew. God gives and takes life. Deuteronomy 32, verse 39. This is an essential concept for modern liberal Christians who see God only as a do-gooder, loving God. God is love, 1 John 4, verse 8. But it also includes his wisdom of knowing when and how to take life. Keep in mind that the same instruments, Neshama and Ruach, that give life can also take it away. This is the paradox of God, particularly for those who don't understand God's purpose for humankind. Job 27, verse 3. All the while that is Job, my breath, H5397, Neshamah, my breath is in me, and the Spirit, H7307, Ruach, and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils. Job, during his ordeal, confirms he still possesses Neshama and Ruach. He knew the difference between these two elements, and that he, a human being, like all other humans, retains both. Job 32, verse 8. But there is a spirit, H7307, Ruach. There is a spirit in man, and the inspiration, H5397, Neshamah, and the inspiration of the Almighty gives them understanding. Humans possess the Ruach. It is a human component. This is the spirit, translated mind, among other words, by the KJV translators. I will expand on this correct translation in the following chapters. You will see why, in humans, the spirit cannot work without the Neshamah, and vice versa. Both essences must be possessed to be human. Neshamah, given by God as we saw in Genesis 2, verse 7, is directly related to the ability to understand. This is consciousness that confers the human qualities of purpose, function, socialization, rulership, and reasoning on humans. Ruach acts on these 5 attributes, and this God-given duo makes humans who they are. Job 33, verse 4. The Spirit, H7307, Ruach. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath, H5397, Neshamah, and the breath of the Almighty has given me life. Important verse. This is parallel to Genesis 2, verse 7. There we saw God formed, Yatzar, God formed, and here we see God's Spirit made. This is additional, complementary information. Job points out God's attribute of using the Ruach with a capital S to create and the Neshamah to give life. Job 34, verse 14. If he, God, if he set his heart upon man, if he gather unto himself his spirit, H 7307, Ruach, he gather unto himself his spirit and his breath, H 5397, Neshamah. If, or rather when, a human dies, God collects each human's Ruach and Neshamah. The Neshamah, our ability to understand, our intellect, Job 32 verse 8 above, and the spirit that animated us return to God on our death. God gave them to us to live our life. They return to him on death. Why? We shall see. But for now, retain that both Neshama and Ruach return to God, not just the Ruach, which is what most Bible readers know. Secondarily, as we go through this duo of Neshama and Ruach with a focus on the latter, notice man's spirit with a small s, as in Job 34:14, and God's spirit with a capital S, as in Job 33 verse 4. The same essence, spirit, but two very different states. Psalm 18 verse 15. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at your rebuke. O Lord, at the blast, H 5397, Neshamah, at the blast of the breath, H 7307, Ruach, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. This verse is similar to 2 Samuel 22 verse 16 above, about how God can deal with enemies. Isaiah 42 verse 5. Thus says God the Lord, He that created the heavens and stretched them out, He that spread forth the earth, and that which comes out of it, He that gives breath, H 5397, Neshamah, He gives breath to the people upon it, and spirit, H 7307, Ruach, to them that walk therein. God is the creator of earth, flora, and fauna, what comes out of it. And at the pinnacle, he gives both Neshama and Ruach to humans. This verse is clear that all human beings receive Neshama and Ruach. Nowhere does it say animals receive both these components. The explanation has elaborated on how the Bible shows Neshama is for humans alone, while animals do possess Ruach alone, as we saw in Genesis 7, verse 15. Isaiah 57, verse 16. For I, God, I will not contend forever, neither will I be always wroth, for the Spirit, H 7307, Ruach, for the Spirit should fail before me, and the souls, H 5397, Neshamah, and the souls which I have made. God will not be upset with humankind continually. He's angry because humankind is misusing the Neshama and Ruach God has given them. In other words, humans are not using their God-given components to rule for peace and prosperity. But God says, in this verse and context, that he will straighten this situation out. He will not continue in his wrath. This is the last verse with Neshama and Ruach together, and is the fabulous faith we can have in God for the future of humankind. Notice how throughout these passages, the translations of Neshamah and Ruach continually change and sometimes switch from one to the other. Note the translation of this last Neshamah is soul, the same as nephesh. Indeed, the KJV translators were at a loss with these biblical Hebrew words, and in all translations, it is impossible to understand what's going on. Remember, we're explaining a fundamental component of each human being worldwide, yet readers and scholars don't comprehend it. We don't understand what a human being really is. Amazing, but you are learning the answer to this enigma from the explanation. From these verses, we can understand at least 4 essential points about the components of each and every human being. First, Neshama and Ruach, the latter in particular, include breath, breathing, but both represent something much deeper than that. Second, since God possesses them, we shall see, in one way or another, they cannot be physical. Neshama and Ruach have immaterial counterparts with humans. Therefore, humans possess intangible components. Third, since Neshama and Ruach, being metaphysical, are invisible to and unmeasurable by any physical devices, this means they are inaccessible to science. So we're into the realm of the meeting of theology and science, even if science doesn't know it. Neshama, and especially Ruach, are the missing links between these two disciplines. Stay with the explanation, because Ruach has much to do with science. And fourth, these initial conclusions about Neshama and Ruach describe the immaterial components of each human. They are the solution to the mind-body problem. The mind and body are two totally separate entities. One, composed of the two spirits, is transcendent and intangible, while the second, the body, is material and physical. The title of this book, Mind-Body Problem Solved, is not in vain, but we will discover much more: how the immaterial components in all humans work, and why we possess them. We will also reveal how to maximize their secular and spiritual use for peace and prosperity. God possesses Ruach. It is therefore clearly more than the physical breath that humans and animals have. When the Ruach is associated with a Neshamah, this is reserved solely for humans. Combined, they endow each human being with their spiritual component, which differentiates and places them mountains above animals. In the next chapter, we'll home in on Ruach and see precisely what it is and what it accomplishes.